What players could swing the Thunder season? Who's going to be the X factor? Is Jared Butler going to Washington going to hurt the Thunder in any way? And can Isaiah Joe repeat his success from a year ago? We'll talk about that on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into your mailbag questions to discuss the Oklahoma City Thunder losing Jared Butler to Washington. Can Isaiah Joe build on his breakout season? And who will take the biggest leap this season? Who could be considered an X factor for the Thunder this year? Plus, what's more likely to happen? Chet Holmgren, Josh Giddey, or Jalen Williams becomes an all-star? We'll talk about all that and more on today's podcast, which is a mailbag episode. So your mailbag questions will be answered here today. You can also text the show, 405-963-3686 over on Subtext to get direct access to the show. And we start today's mailbag podcast with actually a topic a few of you asked about, and that's Jared Butler heading to Washington. So Jared Butler signs a two-way deal with the Washington Wizards after a summer league that saw him post 16 points per game, 2 rebounds, 4 assists per game, a steal and a half per game, and 2 turnovers. He shot 47% from the floor, 44% from deep, and 94% at the free throw line over the course of this summer. Of course, his Thunder tenure is capped off by that final game of the season after the play-in positioning was locked up, where he gets the start. He goes for 25 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and goes 5 for 9 from 3. That is like the highlight of what happened for him in OKC. Now, the bottom line here is that the Will Dawkins connection is strong. Of course, the organization liked Jared Butler to bring him in last year. Will Dawkins departs to Washington, and now Washington has a lot of former Thunder guys. Brian Keefe, Mike Muscala, Gallinari, Eugene Omoruyi, drafting Coulibaly, and now signing Jared Butler. That connection is strong. And the bottom line here is this is free agency. And Jared Butler made a decision and a choice to go to an environment that not only will be comfortable because he has that relationship with Will Dawkins and kind of understands how a Will Dawkins-led team is ran, but also because it's an environment that will put his skills on display, a design place to let him play more. He's 22 years old. He was once a highly thought-after recruit and, of course, prospect coming into the NBA draft, and he slipped on draft night. This is a guy that has the talent. He has the ability. And at only 22 years old, he's going to a team that can provide him with more opportunity. That opportunity just simply isn't in OKC. The Thunder will always try to maximize their two-way slots. They're always going to try to maximize their roster spots and give opportunity to guys and explore the roster. But at the end of the day, any two-way guy not named Keontae Johnson just is not going to get the opportunity necessary to latch on the NBA long term, because you have such a overflowing roster of talent that needs to be in your rotation and talent that needs to help you win games. And so Jared Butler goes from being someone who would be mainly dependent upon G League time to being somebody who can absolutely get NBA minutes and likely get heavy NBA minutes post All-Star break and maybe even sooner for what is supposed to be a monumental tank in Washington. And we've been looking back on, should the Thunder bring back Jared Butler? That's the thing. We've been saying all along that, the thing is with Jared Butler, you bring him in for what he can do for organizing and maximizing your G League team. And that's just not where a 22-year-old is at. He wants to be given the chance to earn NBA minutes, and he can do that in Washington. Because if the Thunder look back this time, next year, and they say, you know what that team missed? Jared Butler. Well, things have gone horribly wrong for Oklahoma City. And I say that as a Jared Butler fan, but even as someone who roots for Jared Butler and thinks he's a good player, if all of a sudden you think this rotation is missing Jared Butler, this season has gone off the rails. It's gone completely off the rails, either via injury, either via regression, whatever the case is. And so while rooting for Jared Butler to succeed, just like you root for Eugene Moreau to succeed, there's no reason to be upset that they're no longer in OKC. You just hope that they can latch on elsewhere. As for the Thunder two-way spots, you get 3 now with the new CBA. 1 is already tied up with Keontae Johnson. That means that they have 2 available. And the easy answer is Lindy Waters, who is eligible to be placed back on a 2-way deal. So the easy answer would be that you fill this out with Keontae Johnson, Lindy Waters, and then you have another one open for Caleb McConnell, who is a real deal defensive ace, called the Blanket as an incredible nickname, and proved it in Summer League against some NBA competition, some NBA prospects. You can look at KJ Williams maybe from the Summer League team also, and then of course you can expand this to beyond just the Summer League roster. But at the end of the day, Lindy Waters would be a name that people love to have back. Keontae Johnson, of course, the 50th overall pick and a guy that got you really excited over Summer League. At the end of the day, this is no longer an area where you're going to expect a lot from, and really an area where you want to get a lot from, because in order for them to kind of leap up, that means someone's taken a very much step back, and then you get to this spot where they're not postseason eligible, so you'd have to then convert them, but then whose roster spot do you take away? And it just becomes a mess this year with figuring out these two ways. So I wouldn't say that this is like a bad move by the Thunder. I saw some of this in the comments, like, oh, it's a bad move by the Thunder to not bring on Jared Butler. Who can they get better than Jared Butler on a 2-way deal? The Thunder couldn't force Jared Butler to remain in OKC. This is Jared Butler going and getting a better opportunity. And for guys like Jared Butler, who are going to be only on the 2-way deal, there's better opportunity out there, because the pathway to getting NBA minutes in OKC is extremely harder than it would be somewhere else like Washington that is tanking, and you're going to eventually get time, if not right out of the gate. So Jared Butler, really good at navigating the pick and roll, really good at just scoring and shooting and keeping offenses in grooves. That can be an area that the Wizards need, either with the go-go or with the Wizards themselves, or both. So all in all, good luck, Jared Butler, but it should not really impact the Thunder. And honestly, it probably will not even register with fans here in about 5 weeks. So there it goes with Jared Butler. Coming up, Isaiah Joe. Was that a fluke, or was that for real with his shooting streak? We'll talk about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Go there right now, because they are the official sportsbook of Locked On and Major League Baseball. You can go there right now and get your first swing at betting on MLB at FanDuel.com with 10 times your first bet for an amount in bonus bets up to $200. So go there right now, and that's right. You can just bet $20, and you're going to get on top of that $200 in bonus bets, no matter if you win or lose. It's that simple. It's that easy. You get paid instantly. It's safe, it's secure, super easy to use. So go there right now and bet on some baseball. They also have every other sport you can imagine, but you can go there right now to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. And whenever you do, bada bing, bada boom, we're pulling it up. Angels, Tigers. Angels are 1.5 underdogs against Detroit. I like that. I would take that if I were you at FanDuel.com. So go there right now, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. We're talking your mailbag questions today. At Douglas Hale _ asks, how much do you trust Isaiah Joe to return and maintain his shooting numbers from last season? Any word that this is a fluke year? Really good question from Doug. Last year, Isaiah Joe shot 41% from 3. He shot 40% on non-corner threes and 48% on corner threes. He shot 42% on catch and shoot, 40% off the dribble, and shot 49% when left unguarded. He also shot 49% in the mid-range and 70% at the rim. The reason why I have no concerns of this being a fluke from Isaiah Joe is that you look at him, and in the pregame warmups, he's still just an eye-popping shooter. Listen, Isaiah Joe typically goes and does his pregame workout and warmups before the doors even open. So in order to get there and see it, you got to get there at like 4 o'clock. Let me tell you, even driving an hour and a half to the arena every single game, he made it worth it to get there early and to sit there and just watch in an empty arena as he poured in buckets. He made it enjoyable to go cover those double headers where you're grinding it out from noon with the Blue all the way to midnight with the Thunder. And you knew after the Blue game, okay, around 4 o'clock, I can start hearing the ball bouncing and it'll be Isaiah Joe out there just raining down threes. And so when you look at him shoot the ball in those kind of environments and how good he is, but also how mechanically repeatable he is, and you watch him line up the laces even while he's just catching the ball, like that kind of stuff, it is so repeatable for him to have this success, plus the range and the spacing that he provides, plus the benefit he'll get from the rim pressure from Shai, the rim pressure from Chet, and the environments that he'll be in and the lamps he'll be in around him. But most importantly, you look at by month. Here's the kicker here. And here's what comes with the territory as a shooter. So by month for Isaiah Joe, from 3, October 60%, November 41%, December 45.8%, January 43.8%, February 47.9%, March 31%, April 40%. So the thing is, I think Isaiah Joe can absolutely be a 40% three-point shooter again. Now, he's going to have a month where he shoots nearly 48% from 3. He's also going to have a month where he shoots 30% from 3. And so it's just a matter of which number comes first that determines if we panic or if we don't. I think that the vast majority of people listening didn't even know that in March he shot 30% from 3. But if you do that in October, if you do that in November, it is just panic mode activated. Like if you take these numbers from Isaiah Joe and you just basically flip them to where, let's read it in reverse, to where October's 40%, March's 30, October's 40%, November's 31%, people would freak out. Even though by the end of it, it would materialize into 40% from 3, that would be enough cause for concern. So the hot start, I think, did propel him a bit because it takes some of that pressure off of you and the outside noise off of you. But I would just go into this year not looking for a fluke. Because I think that there is still some of that reservation of like, can Isaiah Joe do it again? At some point, he's going to shoot 30% from 3. At some point, he'll shoot 50% from 3. And at the end of the day, I think he'll shoot 40% from 3. And so I wouldn't expect the extreme highs to sustain. Like for the majority of this season, he was shooting 45% from 3. I think that was an amazing peak. But I think that for this season, he can shoot 40% from 3 again. Absolutely. At Shay4310, who do you think has the best chance to become an all-star in their career? J-Dub, Chet, or Giddey? So you would have to say Jalen Williams, because you've actually seen him flash that potential in an NBA game already, in the sense of like sustained for an entire year. Now, Josh Giddey, I hear a lot of you already. I can just feel you and hear you in the comments already yelling about how Josh Giddey's been awesome as well. If Josh Giddey had his own team to command his own offense, I would be way more willing to put him at number 1. And even if that jump shot just continues to materialize and continues to improve with Chip England, that's the same thing. But I would still lean J-Dub, a little bit here. The kicker is, I think that Chet has the narrative, though. Chet is the second overall pick. Chet is going to be put where, and I hate to make this kind of a proclamation, but I would be stunned if Chet Holmgren even struggles in the NBA, because he's not going to come into this as the savior the way that most top picks do. He's going to come into this as like the third or fourth option and just play his role and get to ease into it both on the court and off the court. He's been around this organization all year. He truly stayed locked in whenever he was hurt. He didn't just go there, rehab, and call it good. Like, he saw what it takes to play in the NBA. He saw the late nights. He saw how you need to prepare to stay ready, to keep your body ready, to keep rested, et cetera, et cetera. He got all the benefits of that in year 1. So that will help him have a really good rookie year. I think that the narrative behind him is there. And I think that none of these guys are all-stars this upcoming season. But I think that they all have a really good path and a pretty easy path to becoming all-stars in a vacuum. The issue is it's not only a narrative type of thing, just like MVP. It is a team type of thing where, like, are we going to give the Thunder 3-4 all-stars or 1 all-star or 2 all-stars? There's just so many limited roster spots and so many teams to try to want guys in the all-star game, to where that plays a part in it too. But in terms of like who's going to be an all-star caliber player, you can make the argument that all 3 of them will be all-star caliber. Who actually makes the team while a member of the Thunder? I would say that J-Dub is probably the easiest path to see. Chet is a 1A, 1B. And then Josh Giddey has an extremely easy path to be an all-star. Can he do it as a member of the Thunder? We'll see if that actually happens. So again, the hilarious part is you can pick any of the 3 and you can't call that person crazy. So if you go on YouTube right now and search up Locked On Thunder and listen to this podcast on YouTube, or if you're already doing so, just scroll down and you look at the comments. You will see people fighting for Josh Giddey to be this answer. You'll see people fighting for J-Dub to be this answer and Chet to be this answer. And they're not wrong. None of them are wrong no matter who they picked, but I would go Dub, Chet, Josh on that answer. At O'Connor Keegan, biggest leap next year, and will Jared Butler make the Wizards roster? Again, I'm just going to take this to mean that, can he make a standard contract? I don't think so. I think that Jared Butler can make kind of a sweetheart deal like Eugene and Lindy. Like Eugene and Lindy technically made the Thunder standard roster next year, this past year, but Eugene made it for like 2 days and Lindy made it for like 2 months. So yes, he could do that type of thing. And Will Dawkins might be wanting to carry that mode over to Washington of rewarding 2-way guys like that. But long-term rotational piece, Jared Butler in Washington, I'm not sure that I see that, but this is his best chance to do that. Like, this is his best chance to get the runway and get the opportunity to get that type of role in the NBA. And then who's the biggest leap next season? So stat-wise, like just pulling up their basketball reference page this time next year and going, whoa, he actually really improved. I'd say Josh Giddey will have the biggest leap stat-wise on the B-ball reference page. Playability-wise and watchability-wise, where you just can see your eyes tell you the truth, it'll be Ousmane Dieng having the biggest kind of turnaround and leap in like perception and again, just watchability and playability from last year. So the biggest leap there from him. At _CL12_. Could the Thunder theoretically and realistically trade for Luka Doncic in 2 to 3 years? I think he fits the Thunder outside of defense perfectly. Look, if Luka Doncic is like, hey, I want out of Dallas and I want to go to Oklahoma City, you have to do it. But I wouldn't do it, and I don't think he fits perfectly in OKC. I don't think that his play style is what the Thunder want to play stylistically. I also look at this and say, to pull off this trade, right, to trade for a Luka, you have to give up an insane amount of draft capital, but you also have to give up young players. And so at that point, you are building this team that is just, it's only going to be Shai and Luka. That's it. And that's a really good 1-2 punch. And that's what Dallas is doing, with Kyrie and Luka. And we'll see if that actually works. But in this scenario, it means it wouldn't have worked, number one. But nonetheless, me personally, I would just rather, as much as I like Luka, I told you on last week's mailbag, he's one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. Me personally, though, I would rather not give up a ton of young players plus plus draft capital to get Luka and Shai together and have no depth around them. I would rather build a team that's incredibly deep around Shai and this young core. That's kind of the pathway that I would rather see the Thunder go down. But again, if Lucas for some reason was like, look, I want to play with Shai, I want to play in OKC, send me there, and does the leverage play there, which would be unheard of to go do that for OKC, then yeah, you've got to take that call and you've got to do it. But I don't really think that he fits stylistically with OKC, not just defense, but offense as well with OKC. And then at Noel C. Adam, who is your projected starting 5 for next season? SGA, Josh Giddey, J-Dub, Dort, and Chet. For me, that's my starting 5. I'll go SGA, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, J-Dub, and Chet. I don't think there's much mystery to it. I don't think there's going to be some big surprise. Like I know that Mitchich is comfortable in his role and understands the situation in OKC. And besides him, I don't really see anyone beating down the door to be a starter, especially on opening night. And so opening night, you tell me that they're fully healthy and you tell me that they're ready to rock and roll. It'll be SGA, Josh, Dort, J-Dub, and Chet. Coming up, can Aaron Wiggins crack and maintain in their rotation? Will the Thunder retire some Legends uniforms? And what trade deadline trade do I want to see made for OKC? We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast, on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. We're here with your mailbag questions and your mailbag podcast, answering your questions. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast from. Leave a 5-star review on any podcasting platform and comment on YouTube. Anything that you want me to know. Now, let's talk about your questions, including from @123OKC321. I really like Aaron Wiggins for his contributions on and off the court. Can you see a pathway for him to get significant playing time, or at least similar to last year's minutes? I also really like Aaron Wiggins, as you know from this podcast. At some point, winning has to matter. Like at some point, it's got to be, hey, who are the 8, 9, 10, 12 best guys to win basketball games in Oklahoma City? And when that is the case, and when that eventually happens, Wiggins makes the most winning plays and is one of your most, is one of your best players at making winning plays. This roster is talent filled top to bottom, and they have a lot of guys who you want to invest in. They have a lot of guys who deserve minutes. They have a lot of guys who people believe in. But at the end of the day, push comes to shove, and you're trying to win basketball games. I'm not so sure that there are 10, 12 guys ahead of Aaron Wiggins of contributions on the court and a winning style of basketball. So I'd be a bit shocked and a bit confused if Wiggins doesn't see a minutes increase a little bit in this season. I think that should happen. I really do. At Brett HD3, if the Thunder made one big trade at the deadline, what player realistically would you want? And what would you give up? Okay. I have a player. Dorian Finney-Smith. That's who I would want at the deadline. Again, this can change because we are half a year away from the deadline, and we don't really know how this team's going to play with Chet, and we don't really know how this team will play in general. But as of right now, I would love if the Nets would do draft capital, Davis Bertans for Dorian Finney-Smith. So something to the effect of the Thunder get Dorian Finney-Smith and the Nets get Davis Bertans to match salaries and 2 first-round picks. You give them 1 first-round pick for taking on Davis's money, even though they can cut it for $5 million at the end of the season, and then 1 first-round pick for Dorian. I would prefer for at least one, if not both, of those first-round picks to be in 2024 in that draft, but at least one of them to be in that draft. And then from there, you get Dorian Finney-Smith, who is an amazing 3-and-D shooter and can really fit the Thunder play style. And forget about what you think about, Cason making Dort expendable. Dorian Finney-Smith really makes Dort expendable to make a bigger trade in conjunction with this at the deadline, or just simply keep all 3 of them, and you have an incredible lineup where if you need a stop, let's say there's a timeout. All right, timeout on the floor. We want to advance the ball and set up a play to try to win the game with 10 seconds left, and we're against the Thunder and we're down by 2. And then Mark looks to the bench and goes, okay, we're playing offense, defense here. Put out Cason at the 1, Dort at the 2, Dorian at the 3, J-Dub at the 4, Chet at the 5. Who's scoring on that lineup? That would be an insane lineup defensively. And that's just yet another insane defender to add to this group, and someone who provides some shooting as well. And he made such winning contributions for Dallas on their way to that surprise Western Conference Finals run. So I would really like Dorian Finney-Smith. I think that's kind of realistic because for Brooklyn, you get them some immediate draft capital in 2024. You get them off of Dorian's contract in the sense of it's a year longer than Bertans, even though you're only going to pay Bertans $5 million next year. So you can actually kind of mental gymnastics your way to say that that's 2 years less than Dorian Finney-Smith, but nonetheless. So maybe Brooklyn would do that, and then OKC could benefit from it. At No Clue is the best. Who besides Jared Butler that is currently on the Thunder's roster or staff ends up a Wizard next? Yeah, they have a lot of Wizards. I could see Wiggins being somebody that, like, if the Thunder move on from him, like he's a Maryland University guy, I don't think that they're going to move on from Wiggins. I could see if the Wizards want a new head coach that, maybe you call up on a young guy like a Cam Woods, who is from this organization. Like Cam Woods played for the Blue. He was an assistant for Mark. He's a head coach for the Blue right now, going into his second year as a head coach on the Blue. So he has playing experience, he has coaching experience, and he would be a young G League hire, which Sam Presti made with Mark and worked out so well. Will Dawkins could make with Cam Woods and work out so well. That would be another name to watch if you're Washington, and you end up needing a head coach here in about 8 months. And then, I could see, like, in terms of like the roster, what if, with no extension in sight for Poku this offseason, he goes into this year as a restricted free agent. Typically, Sam Presti does not let guys hit restricted free agency. What if you just take a shot on Poku? Because you would imagine that this Wizards rebuild will take longer than 1 year. You would imagine that next year they're going to be tanking also. And so then you give Poku another environment where he gets a longer runway to develop, and a longer runway to explore and polish his skills. So I would say that those are some names to watch for if you're Washington, just for fun. Milo, does the number 35 get retired? Yes, absolutely. Going along with that, at @_Canadian, is Westbrook's number retired? It absolutely is going to get retired whenever he retires. And I would say that you can call it retired now, because I do not think that we're going to have a PJ Dozier situation. I think that he's going to be the last one to ever wear number 0 and the first and last one to ever wear number 0 for OKC. So yes, just go ahead and say it's retired already. At MK325491, what Thunder player is going to be the X factor for this team next season for team success? It'd be Ousmane Dieng or Cason Wallace. Like, if Cason Wallace can have a rookie impact that J-Dub had, that takes this team to a whole nother level of potential. If Ousmane Dieng can perform like he did in Summer League, that takes this team to a whole nother level of what they can do. So X factor, that's kind of what I'm thinking of like what can make this team go to another gear, and getting significant contributions from both or one of those two guys would do that. At Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if the Thunder are a top 4 seed, can SGA win MVP? Absolutely. And I don't say that as a Thunder bias. I'm just saying SGA is already in top 10 MVP odds. He's 9th right now in MVP odds, according to Vegas. He finished top 5 last year in MVP voting, so he was close last year. He's still going to have the narrative of, like, he led this team, he drugged this team to a top 4 seed, et cetera, with this young, scrappy Thunder team. He's going to be efficient. He's going to, to get to a top 4 seed, he'll be efficient again. He'll need to score 30 points again or more, and he'll have that excellent defense again, and you'll have the wins at that point. So, yeah, he absolutely can be in MVP conversations as a top 4 seed, because at that point, Joel Embiid's already got one. Giannis has already got one. Jokic has already got the awards. So we've seen, even last year, you can argue, we saw it to the greatest extent last year, of like, people get tired of giving the awards to the same guys. And so a top 4 seed from SGA, with what he'd have to do to get this team to a top 4 seed, with already being top 10 in MVP voting, top 10 MVP odds and top 5 in MVP voting this year, it would not be unheard of to see SGA win MVP this year, if, it's a big if, he can get the Thunder to a top 4 seed. That is a massive if. But with those parameters, sure, he can. And then at Allen_111, who is more likely to make the roster? Ty Washington, Usman Garuba, Poku, or Jeremiah Robinson-Earl? So I'm going to rank them from most likely to make the roster to least likely. Poku's making the roster, so Poku. And then I'd go Ty Washington, Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, and Garuba. Most to least likely. Poku, Ty, Jerry, and Garuba. You can hear my roster projection on who will and won't make the roster on yesterday's podcast. So go back and listen to that podcast right now, wherever you get your podcast from, including on YouTube. We have a very special guest for you tomorrow, talking about Cason Wallace and talking about the Thunder draft. And we're going to try to figure out this rotation later on in the week as well, and have another guest for you later on in the week. So stay tuned, lock in to Locked On Thunder. And until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.